Stephen grew up in Durham with his older brother Spence and his mother Lender. They were pivotal in shaping and sparking his creative pursuit. When Stephen was in first grade, he wrote a remote control car, and his brother took it apart, attached the motor to a battery, and brought it back to life. So Stephen was amazed, and for him, then bringing all kinds of things to see how they worked and what he could create with the pieces became his mode of working. By second grade, his mother had given him a real workbench. She and Stephen's brother would bring home abandoned equipment for tinkering. Later, Stephen would go on to earn a Master of Fine Arts in Sculpture at Savannah College of Art and Design in Atlanta. Some of you students may want to ask about that course of study. Today, he uses symbols in his work, 3 of them, a pawn, horn, and horse, to explore America's use or misuse of Black bodies. And the work from his thesis exhibition, Cash Crop, has been traveling for over a decade. Artists, he believes, are as much translators as they are creators. Stephen today is currently the assistant professor of practice of art, art history, and visual studies at Duke University. And of course, we are deeply connected to him for his work around the studies here on our grounds. Please help me welcome Daniel Jones.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Thank you so much for being here. It's an honor to sit on the stage with Stephen Hayes. One, ever since Boundless was permanently installed into the ground, I don't think you could possibly imagine, because you're not here the day in and day out, the amount of work that piece does in this community, the amount of families who come out here. Check that piece out and who just pour their hearts out, because you poured your heart out in a piece of work that is never going to leave campus. So we're very thankful and grateful for that piece.
Thank you. Thank everybody else. Wow.
And that's just one facet of your work. It's just one installation you've done. You've done so many pieces of work. So the very first thing I have to ask you, in 2 sentences or less, what does it mean? Who is Stephen Hayes and Stephen Hayes Creations?
2 sentences? 2 sentences. Or less. He's a dreamer. That's it. He's a dreamer and a creator. That's all I can give you. 2 sentences. He is a dreamer. So yeah.
And as September mentioned earlier, from the time you're a very young kid, you've always had that curiosity. You pick things up, you've torn them apart, you put them together. How would you say your family, your brother, your mother played how large a role they played in supporting you? Because I know if my mother were to walk on me tearing a toy apart, we probably would have been having a very different conversation.
It had such a tremendous amount of input on my life and everything I've done. When it comes to, I was breaking toys and making toys out of them. So, she's saying that, he has a love for making these stuff and wowing us. So she bought me a workbench, I'm in the 2nd grade with real tools, with real saws and hammers. So, I got kids that are twins that are 3. I can imagine 5 years, 6 years from now, when they're 6, and giving them a real workbench. She had a vision already knowing, this is what this kid loves to do, so let me help cultivate what he's doing. And then, so from there, they would just bring me old machines and stuff. I was just loving it. And to this day, they still do the same thing. They see something hey, let me see if he wants this. I might take a picture of it on with their phone and send it to me. Hey, you want this? I'm all right, yeah, let's check it out and see if I can make something with it.
So this is a passion you had since you were very young.
Yeah.
When you acquired this workbench and these tools, what were some of the first things you were making?
So some of the first things were, this is funny, but so my older brother was born on the same day, 15 years apart. He would come and torment me every morning before I would go to school. breaking my Legos or whatever. Everybody knew not to touch what I'm creating my Legos. So he would come there and do it every morning. So things that I would make with that workbench were like weapons to hurt him. But yeah, I don't know. I used to make a whole lot of stuff. I just know that I used to make little weapons to try and like hurt him with. And I would make something out fine sticks and rocks, cardboard boxes, and just dreaming, just making stuff out of it.
Do you still have any of those pieces that you made when you were younger?
Nah, I don't have any of those pieces. I mean, I know because we live in an apartment. One of the weapons that I'm trying to make is in the attic of that apartment. So if I was to go back to that apartment, I could probably find it. It was a spike ball with like.
And you said when you were creating at this age, you were creating while your mother.
So while my mom to explore, just make things. Just like because when you're a kid, you're there just to just dream. You're there. There's nothing. The world has not like beat down on you yet. So you're just there to like wow, like oh, let me try this, let me do that. So that's what I was doing. Just exploring and not being beat down by the world at that point.
And do you still have that same goal with your work now, or is it to wow your mother? Is it to wow yourself?
So yes, I still have that goal to this day. It's more to wow myself, to see if I can create the things I'm dreaming of. So I don't think about where the work's going to go, if it's going to get money, or what everybody else's work is doing, or if their work is trending, or how can I make work that's trending. I don't worry about that kind of stuff. I just worry about like me and making sure that I'm happy with what I create. So to be able to wow myself is one of those things that I really enjoy to do. Like when I made Cash Pro, I was there for 3 months, day and night working, and I knew what I was making, but it took probably 2 months for me to realize what I made, So to be able to do that is something that I love to do.
And then, so you made so much since the time your parents got you that work, since she's got you those tools. Your portfolio is extensive. Now, you say you just make to make. You just get in that mode. You get in that creative.
I call it a machine mode.
Machine mode.
Yeah.
How do you find balance in that machine? How do you balance? Because now you're not just making to make, you're making for your career, teach. When do you find time to just make for yourself?
No,
it's not a project.
I still make make to make myself happy, But I do get commissions where like to make something like Brown, so to make all these other plumbing art pieces. So I remove myself from like what I make, like my personal stuff, and create stuff for the directory. Just use my skill and talent. As far as balance, just like everybody else, I just love working with my hands.
Yeah. Well, I know a lot of artists have very delicate relationships with their work. And the moment something starts to lean towards one side or the other, whether it's not becoming funny anymore, or maybe they find that they're only doing this and they're judging themselves based on how much they make, how do you continue to keep the same joy you had as a kid?
I'm not, because I love the dream, man. Like, I love making. So like I said before, I don't worry about where, if it's going to go somewhere, if it's going to sell or anything like that. It's just the joy of me being able to make stuff. And I've made so much over the time that I've been making that it's led to me being able to show the work that I've made, just not worrying about what it means and stuff. So I feel like I'm fully balanced, because I have my job, my regular job, which helps take care of my family and my bills and stuff. But then I'm able to work on my own stuff, whatever I want to create. So luckily, things that I create are are able to go to museums and galleries and stuff. So
Now that you have this is full portfolio work, now that you have this job, and for those who don't know, he's currently teaching at Duke University. The classes you teach are
sculpture
sculpture.
sculpture classes.
Okay. Now, as you are getting older and you're working more and working more, are you finding a bigger love for teaching to kind of share that wisdom you started to pick up over your career?
I love teaching. I love working with the youth for the next generation of artists to help them figure out what their voice is. So that's always one of those things I love to do. I still stay in contact with kids I taught, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago. They still call me. I actually just got a text message from when I taught 7 years ago saying, telling me about some food we ate or whatnot. But I still stay in contact with all these kids. And I'm happy to see their journey, see where they're going, see what type of artists they're growing to be. So, when you come to my classes, it's different from everybody else's class. I'm not I'm not what a regular teacher looks like, I guess. I ride a motorcycle. They probably feel like I'm the same age they are sometimes. So, I go there and I give my students a hard time, but this is all I love. I see them grow. So.
Now, who's that person for you? Is there someone you keep in contact with who's kind of watched your art journey from the time you were a student to where you are now?
Nah, I don't. I don't have any nobody like that. Really. There was one professor that looked out for me. When I was in undergrad at North Carolina Central, she helped me get a residency upstate New York, Alfred University for ceramics, which is one of the biggest ceramics colleges in the States. She came to my house and helped me build a portfolio when I was an undergrad, got me my residency, ended up going to do the residency and then going to SCAD to get my master's in sculpture. She came down to Atlanta to see my unpaid thesis show. This lady drove 6 hours and she had cancer and she was sick. So that was like super amazing, person for me to look up to. For her to see her come to my house, do what she did, and then drive 6 hours and see my thesis show. That's the type of person I look up to. But she passed probably like 2013, somewhere in that area. But
Now, this residency she helped you get up north. Was that your first one?
That was my first residency, so I didn't know what a residency was. I left undergrad. I cried. I didn't know what I was going to do. I knew I had that residency. So I went upstate to Alfred University, and I was hand building pots and throwing pottery. So throwing is, y'all know y'all seen ghosts before, so it's not a sexual scene. But yeah, so I did that for a month. I think it was 3 months upstate New York, throwing pots. Made as much as I possibly could, and my mom and my brother drove up there with a van, had everything made, and we drove back to North Carolina. And then I found out I got into SCAD.
And that was your first residency. Why don't you tell the audience what the most recent residency you completed was, and then we'll chart that path.
So the most recent residency I've done was Black Rock, Senegal. So that's in Dakar, Africa. So I was there for a month. I could only do a month because I teach. So that was just cutting into class time. So I was there for the month of January. I got back February 7th, somewhere there.
Now, that's your most recent residency. You've had multiple over the course of the last 10 years or so. And a lot of the work that Ashley displayed here, you made at these different residencies. So you want to kind of
Okay.
Share your residency history. We can show some pictures of the things you made.
First residency I did was 7 months in Columbia, South Carolina. So I did that in like 2012, somewhere in the area. So a little bit after I got out of grad school, I think I was teaching at Georgia State at that time. So I was driving back and forth from teaching in Atlanta to Columbia, South Carolina, once a month, once a week. I did that trip, or maybe twice a week. Yeah. So they gave me like a studio, a loft to live in, and a workspace to work in at that time. And then I did that, and I created. We'll talk about the work I created while I was there, or I created a series of portraits of called God We Trust. So yeah, right here, while I was there. So I was there for about maybe 2 months. And I created these, and I also sort of little tapestry pieces for the like crochet with carvings. So it's there. Further down, but yeah, that was right. That would go back one. So I created this one while I was there. So you know, it just gives you time. Some time and space to be able to create these residencies. So I ended up carving 96 blocks, those little wood blocks, which takes about 45 minutes each to carve. And then crochet each block together. So crocheting wood together, it takes an hour and some change to crochet around one block. So I sit there and watch TV shows the whole time while I'm there. So you carve it out, and then you have to ink the block, because it's the same way as a printmaking technique. And then I crochet around the block.
Now, when you go into your residency, are these fresh ideas you make during your time spent there, or are you going in some loose ideas, what you want to create, and you're going to flesh it out there?
So that's kind of yes and no. Meaning, I'm more influenced by like what's around me, you know, what kind of materials that I have, and the ideas that or like what I'm just leaving from. So originally, I had 2 little panels that I made before so this is like a little bit after my thesis. And I made these little booklets that had images of like all of my artwork and stuff, and then like how I made cash crop and all that stuff. And 2 of those little panels made the book, the hardback of the book. So going back and just looking at it, I was like, man, let's see if I can make one huge one. So I ended up making this big one while I was there. But then like my work was dealing with capitalism and consumerism and stuff at that same time. So, you know, working with the palettes and the skids made me come up with the In God We Trust series. So I was influenced by, you know, so everything kind of like derived from that cash crop thing to create what I mean, create.
Now, you're a contemporary artist, but you pull so much from the past. There's so many historical references in your work. I'm curious, when did you get into history? Is it something you're reading a lot of as a kid, or did you start reading about more once you got to college?
More when graduate school era. When I went to grad school, I was either the only African American student in my department, you know, and I didn't have any African American professors, so it felt like they kept pushing me to do stuff about being Black and all this stuff. But I was in the point where, you know, when I came in there, I was coming from a ceramics background, you know, throwing pots and everything, repetition, shapes, and form, and I learned about talking about identity and stuff. So going to graduate school kind of pushed me forward to making stuff about stuff. That wasn't really what I wanted to do, because I didn't want to be put in a box. I didn't want to be labeled as, oh, he's just a Black artist and he just does Black work. That wasn't, you know, the goal that I strive for, because, you know, outside of being Black, human, you know, I'm just trying to create my experience. So I ended up making that picture that y'all see outside, the passage. I made that in a printmaking class while I was in graduate school. So, in printmaking, you have to do repetition, pull the same prints over and over. That's what printmakers do. And that wasn't what I did. I love to make one-off pieces, and I kind of stressed that to my printmaking professor, and she understood. So I ran an overall representative woodcut farms, making woodcuts. And while I was in grad school with him, I was like, well, why don't you leave the wood carving as the sculpture or as the piece? And he was like, well, no, I'm a printmaker. I need to pull prints and I need to have a repetition of prints, a certain amount of runs of prints and stuff. So he was like, well, since you think, this should happen, here's my tools, why don't you do it? So he gave me his tools and I was just sitting there like, all right, let me try something. And that's actually the first woodcut I ever done. So that frame, I built the frame and then I carved the frame. That's the first woodcut I ever carved. I didn't know what I was doing, but I was thinking about not knowing much about the transport of people as goods and commodity from Africa to America. And I didn't learn much about that in grade school or in college. So not learning that history about how many boats or how many people were transported or anything like that made me come up with this piece right here. So I made that piece, and that piece led me to making cash crops. So
and I was going to say, the theme of the ship is common in your work. We see that a lot, and in this piece, you're connecting those two parts of the planet. Now, the way you've been informed on this story is by everything you learned on this side of the ocean. But in this most recent residency that you completed with Kennedy Wiley, you were in Senegal, and then you got to step foot in a place where this passage began. So tell us about that a little bit.
So, Senegal is, right over the coast of Senegal is Gore Island. It's an island where they took the people who were captive and they stored them in these houses weeks at a time while ships came, and then they took the people and put them on the ships, on the bottom of the ships. So I was able to go to that island, able to walk into those little dungeons under those houses to see the door no return. So I was able to learn how they would stay, how they were just kept, and send their last goodbyes to where they are, to their homeland. I learned.
What do you think that will inform any of your future artwork?
Yes, there are some ideas in my head that I'm playing with and trying to figure out what I want to make next. As far as what my that I had there to like everything else that I'm doing right now. So a lot of stuff plays a big part. So it's like there's an idea come first, so there's a material come first. It's more like it's kind of both. While I was there in Senegal, you have one with Senegalese baskets. But you think about, okay, I'm doing a project in Charleston, South Carolina, and they do the sweetgrass baskets. Yeah. They're done all the same way. So you think about that history of that lineage that's been passed down, that thing. And so somebody at some point in time who was on those ships knew how to do that. And they did that while they was in Charleston. And that tradition has been it's still passed down to this day in Charleston. It's still going on in Senegal. So me saying that making me think, like, how can I use that weaving in part of another sculpture and still talk about this passage that happened? So,
now, when you were out there, did you try any of this basket weaving?
Yeah, I got some of the material. I tried and I failed, but I tried. I I will continue to try. Like at the end of the day, I love to try different things and learn my limits and see how far can I push these limits. So I do have a sculpture in mind that I plan on doing using that basket weaving.
Okay. And I know from conversation we had, you tried lots of things when you were in Senegal, right?
Oh yeah, I tried a whole lot of things. I tried surfing.
How did that go?
That went terrible. But I love the adventure. I love exploring. Just getting out there and trying. It showed me how old I really am. But you know, I tried it, and I would try it again. But I was also amazed to be able to see, like, I don't know much about Africa, but they had the boba trees, like these huge trees. You know, like that tree you see with the guy was it Lion King. Yeah, so like I got to see that, and I got to try to taste the fruit. So that was one of the things I wanted to see. Like I've been to Africa before. I've been to South Africa, Zimbabwe, and Zambia, and I saw the trees from afar. But I didn't know that they could make like a drink or the type of fruit that came from those trees. So when I got to go back, you know, in January, like to taste the fruit from the trees and see what they do with the fruit from those trees.
And whether it's a conscious or subconscious thing, do you think that influences your work too? Because I know a lot of artists create based off of the reality that they're in, their world or their location informs their work. But you're traveling, and I know you've been traveling from a young age.
Yeah, so I am going to use even like the skin from that fruit, like a green velvet like texture. That's going to be part of one the sculpture I've been thinking about with that. So, like all of these experiences that I've had over the years have like influenced my work in some type of way. So,
and now your time out there is about 4 weeks.
About 4 weeks, yeah.
What would you say your overall attitude towards that experience was? And working with Kehinde Wiley, was that your first time meeting him?
That was my first time meeting him, but I didn't really work with him. He came in for, about 10, 15 minutes into the studio. We talked, sat, chatted for a while. Sorry, I missed the question. Can you do it?
What's your overall
experience? Yeah.
Kehinde as well.
My number one goal to get out there was to like meet other artists that are out there and seeing how they work and where they source their materials. Because I know, like for me, I can just go like a hardware store real quick and go get it, but they don't have that kind of opportunity there. So to hear that, like, yeah, we go into the jungle, we cut down our trees, and we use these like small fruit tools to work with, or to see how that's making these nice bronze pieces. And he has a little small office, but he uses wax. And then he has a little foundry, a little forge. And I'm like, so when y'all pour, he's like, we'll pour it in. I never got to see it pour, but knowing what type of foundry work that we use here, and then seeing the foundry that they have there, it's like 30 years past. So to be able to see that stuff was one of the amazing things. I also got to see where they make the quilts or tapestries, like the prayer rugs and everything. So I got to experience that.
No, Senegal is a pretty religious country.
Yeah, it's really religious. Yeah.
And was that in the heartbeat of the art you saw and the daily life? And
you got to leave the compound. We did get to leave the compound. We got to travel, see a few different places. Like these people work out a lot. This is a very like physical country over there. Like you drive, you see them on there's work benches and weights and all that stuff out there on the beach. And you see kids out there playing soccer and doing all these different things. So that was like super amazing to me because you don't see that around here. like that, maybe back when I was a kid, you would see us out there running around playing basketball and stuff, but you don't really see that much no more around here. This is seeing the love that everybody has for each other out there. Was amazing for me.
Now that you're back stateside, what's coming up next for you? I know you said you're in South Carolina. What are you working on now?
So currently I work on a project in South Carolina, in Charleston, South Carolina, making originally it's supposed to be a marker for a mass grave that was found in Charleston, South Carolina. So if you are not familiar with Charleston, they have about 80 mass graves around there, and this will be the first one that has a marker or something. So I came up with the idea to create a fountain for this mass grave. So it's 36 bodies found at this place where they're building. They built this place called the Gilliard, and they want to dedicate. They did a reinterment, so they put the bodies back where they found them, where they made a nice size vault for it. It's buried in the same land. So they ended up taking the DNA from all of these different people, so they know about the age, each person, about where they came from. So me getting that information, we think, how can I do part of the sculpture? So what I ended up doing was casting the hands of 36 people of the same age range. And they will be coming out of a fountain. And the bowl of the fountain we made from the earth from all of these mass graves around Charleston, South Carolina. And so that's all we were.
Now, you told me you work on multiple pieces at a time.
Yeah.
It kind of prevents you from getting a creator's block. When you get to a certain point when one piece of work, you just move on to the next one. Were you thinking about this piece while you were overseas? Some of your stateside projects kind of consuming your thoughts while you're in Senegal as well?
While I was overseas, I mostly took that time out to take a break. Like, I got twin boys, we renovating the house. I got school. I got all these other projects that I knew was going to be knocking at my door. So I took a break for the most time while I was there, but I was able to cast, to make a couple of sculptures while I was there. But yeah, I needed that time. I needed that time off because I knew as soon as I got back, people were gonna be like, "Hey, it's time to come." Like, I was back for like a week, and then I had to go to Charleston and cast 36 hands, and then I came back straight to class. So while I was there, I was still zooming in the class. I'm in Africa, just 3 hours, 6 hours ahead. So I'm zooming in the class. It's nighttime. Nighttime for me. And then when I get back, I'm right back in the middle of everything. Like, as soon as I land on the 7th. I'm in the studio on the 8th. Emailing the students, letting them know, hey, I'm back in town. If y'all want to come in and meet me, I'm here. And then Charleston is calling as well. So I got to go down there and do everything. So I'm already, there's no break.
Before we open up the floor to some questions a little bit, pull some of these pictures up when you're in Senegal. You want to explain?
Yeah. So this is
images.
The image on your left is them. When we went to go see all these different studios, these different spaces. This is a large space where they made these huge tapestries, these prayer rugs and everything. So I was able to sit there. I forgot what the machine is called. But this is how they make rugs and stuff, these prayer rugs. So if you look at the top image, you see where her feet are. The you press that and it releases, it pushes the string down so you can be able to run another string the other way so it can create the line. So the same way like this rug was created, these different levels that you push and you can be able to run the rope through whatever so you can create these different tapestries. Yeah, those things take months and months to create. The bottom image is the studio that I was given while I was there. So I don't know if you can see it, but the water is literally right there. The ocean. It's like, that's my ledge, and you can see the ocean from there. I feel like the studio, the residency there was more conducive for a painter or photographer versus like somebody like me who does sculpture. So, I use a lot of tools and stuff, but I was able to bring things over to make stuff. So that's asking somebody's face. But then I will eventually get to that. This head right here that I casted, it's on your left. I ended up placing it in the ocean. So it's gonna sit there for a year. And I'm gonna see how the environment changes this head, this bust that I made. So I'll go back in a year and see like something grew on it or whatever happened to it. So I will climb out there, walk all the way out there at low tide. So, all the way as far as I could get from those rocks, as far as I got. And I placed my foot that head in there. So nobody would know it's the same color as the rocks.
Okay, just one more question before we open up the floor. I know you said when you were in grad school, when you started doing a lot of historical references that you were putting in your work, things that you didn't originally plan for them to be there. But I was wondering now as an artist with the educational climate and setting, where do you feel an obligation to continue to tell these stories with your work now that we're starting to, I guess, a little bit more what we're allowed to learn it in the classroom?
I mean, the main question is, what can art do?
Yeah.
So for me, if I can create a piece of artwork that's going to capture the audience's attention, make statements, or bring people from cross-cultural, multi-generational, if I could bring all these people together to have these different conversations, then my job is, not saying that it's done, but I'm doing something because art asks these questions or it makes these statements. And so I'm happy to be able to create art to make people have these conversations they never would have on a regular day basis. So, yes, I will continue to make the type of work that I create. Just because there are stories that I need to tell. My as an African American male, that haven't been told or have been told but kept to us. So to be able to create this conversation so the same thing won't happen to the next generation.
Well, thanks so much, Stephen Hayes. On the floor for some questions. There's some time here. Anyone who would like to? Oh, we got one right here in the middle.
The bus, what was the bus made out of? You stuck in the water?
It was made out of cement from there.
Cement?
Yes, sir.
I thought it was plastic. Oh, plastic. Thank you. Who you?
When I grew up, I didn't go to a lot of museums or anything like that. So my inspiration was my mom. Seeing her struggle to put me through two private schools, seeing her do everything she could to better me. That was my inspiration. So.
In Charleston, are these grave sites slave?
Yes.
Slaves? Because I saw they're doing the same thing in Virginia.
Okay.
They had a documentary on PBS about
Okay. Yeah. So I was contacted in 2000, I think 2021, somewhere in that area about this project.
As an artist, there's so many things about you that makes you you and your work, and you tell stories that are, about other places and other people. And then you talk about the difference between an idea and then, the research and what you like to do to tell a specific story that you might not have lived or you might not have experienced, but you understand. Can you talk about that connection between you as a person, like your internal artist, and then places that you have to go work and you have to tell these stories and do the research, and connect with other people that are, really, really into that specific place.
Yeah. All right. So how can I talk about specific places? Man, I'm not, I think you answered the question at the same time of making it. But so yeah, traveling and seeing the world helps influence the type of art that I create. I went to Cuba, when I was like 13. I've been to Cuba about 5 or 6 times since then. I ran with the Bulls in Ibiza. I've bungee jumped in Zimbabwe and Zambia. All of these life experiences and then meeting all these different people or have influenced the type of work that I create. It creates these different conversations. Being in South Africa with my best friend was a white guy, and his best friend was a Jewish guy. And then going to a club where it's mostly, white people, and then people calling me like, "Yo, what's up, Snoop Dogg?" That's influenced the type of work that I
Yeah.
These things have helped me create different types of sculptures. I don't know how to answer the question, man. I'm trying. I'm pull something out for you. But doing commission pieces, I created the work, but the community is actually helping me create this work as well. So at the end of the day, it's not my work, it's actually the community's work. So, but I'm just the conduit that helps, create these things. Right?
I have a whole bunch of questions, but I'll limit it to 2 quick ones. When you do residency, is it for the purpose of learning a new skill and a new technique under an instructor-led kind of class?
No. When I do residencies, is to be able to have space and opportunity to be able to create things. So there's no really an instructor for the most part. It also depends on what type of residency you're going to. So some of them will give you space but no stipend. Some of them will give you space, a studio, and a stipend. Or sometimes you might have to pay for to be in that residency. And also there's different artists that come in at the same time. There'll be different artists. So, for me, for the most part, I'll go to a residency and, there might be 3 or 4 other artists there, just to see those different artists and meet those people. So it's all about that, also networking. So, but depending on what you want, you can ask them, "Hey, I want to go meet such and such artist," and they might be able to connect you with that artist, and you go to work with that artist. So when I was in Senegal, I wanted to see the artists, see how they work, so they connect you with these people. So then I was there for months. I was not able to go and work with them or see where they source and how they source and stuff. Because I was just like, "Hey, yeah." When I met the guy, he didn't speak English really, and then Google Translate does not work. So I'm talking back and forth with the girl, like, hey, look, let him know, like, whenever he going to go source his material, I'll go out there in the woods with him and go do it with him. Like, I just want to see how you do it. I want to experience this stuff. So, but being that was just a month I was there, I didn't have the opportunity, the first day, it's just like me coming in and leaving the last day. So, it went by so fast. But going to different residencies allow you to meet different people and have different opportunities. So,
When you start a new piece of work, do you generally have an end goal in mind, or do you begin and let it guide you?
So when I start a piece of work, it starts in my head first. And I'll have that idea, and it'll probably sit in my head for about a year. And in that time of that year, the idea develops, and it gets changed, and it gets carved, it gets put back together again, it gets taped up, it gets cut up. It changes, it evolves, because I'm having all these different life experiences, and it's adding to that sculpture in my head. And then sometimes the material, running across certain materials, like, oh man, I should use this into that part of that sculpture. So then that material gets added in my head to the sculpture. So it evolves in my head, and I have an idea about how I want it to look. So then I have to try and recreate what I dreamed of in my head. So I got a piece that I'm trying to work on now, and I knew what I wanted to make and how I wanted to be. Like a personal piece, I knew how I wanted to be. I haven't physically started it, right? And then I come across something just out of nowhere. And it's just like, oh boy, I need to change this part of the sculpture, because it's going to be a whole lot of work.
Yeah.
So now, that sculpture has changed, 15%, but it made it's going to make this sculpture, amazing. Yeah.
Right here.
So, along the time you were working on projects and stuff, did you ever make mistakes? And if you made those mistakes, do you start over, or do you kind of work with that?
It all depends on the mistake. Being that you're going to school for art, when I was in elementary school, I made something, and I'm sitting with the art teacher. I'm telling her, oh, I messed up. She looked at me and she was like, no, you didn't. There's no such thing as a mistake. You didn't mess up. Just use it as a learning experience. So I always took that with me. And so when I mess up on stuff, it's just me learning about how can I use a certain material in a different type of way. So if I mess up on something, maybe I'll start over and do it again. But sometimes the viewer never knows that you made a mistake.
That's true.
Like imagine being a musician and coming in to this boardroom and it's showing you're playing your music. And if you just sit there like, dang, should didn't even hear that. Nah, they're gonna notice that. But if you stay hyped the whole time, like this is like they never gonna see that you messed up, because they seeing how hype you are, and you put in that motion into them to want to like, yes, I love it. Like, I love this. So me looking at a mistake is like, okay, I need to figure out how to reuse this. And that mistake might end up on a piece of artwork. That's gonna make that next piece of artwork amazing. So I'm always making things. Like I was telling Daniel, I'm making like 3 or 4 things at a time. So I'm making a lot of stuff. So, being that I might be working on one piece, then maybe I get bored, or I might hit that block. Then I'll go to another piece, and I'll just work and I'll come back to the other piece. So then that's that way I'm able to make multiple things at a time.
Yeah, see your hand in the back.
Oh, I did have my hand up, and then I second guessed myself. But Stephen, I was, I've been sitting here listening to you talk about boundaries, and I just wanted to say that you are so much more than a conduit for our community. Daniel and I have seen personally how people come to Boundless and they cry. Like, we as a community have found hope and agency and perseverance and so much. Your sculpture has made such a positive impact on our community. And it's not just because you're a conduit for our community. It's because of who you are. And it's because of your life experience. And it's because of the way that you are able to translate your life experience through the material. And I just wanted to say how grateful we are to you. I have a question. One of the things that I have loved, so I have had the opportunity to work with Stephen for the past. Okay, so Alicia was pregnant with the boys when I met you. So 5 years, 4.5 years. Yeah. And I love how you get excited about materials. And I love this, in your sculpture, there's this juxtaposition between traditional making, right? Crocheting and ceramics. And then you also push the boundaries of sculpture. What's exciting for you now? Like, what are you getting excited about in your own work? Whether it's materials or, like what's...
Yeah, it's materials, when I first started, I couldn't afford to do, what I wanted to do, it's more of, do I put gas in the car, do I eat material? That's how it was. And now, that I'm teaching full time, I'm able to have a little bit more money where I can ask my friends, or if I can't do it and I know somebody has a better skill set than me, I can ask them to be able to, help me out with a project and be able to pay them for it. For the most part, I don't get grants or anything. It's mostly funded out of my pocket, at the end of the day. So like a piece like Line W, which is goes back, that right there. So a piece like that, I was in a residency in Virginia, and then being asked by the national, I had a piece in mind to create for them to show, and I was like, yeah, the idea was like 7 years ago. I got an idea of something to make, and then this was the image thing I wanted to create. But I was in a residency. I didn't have any tools back when I graduated, so I had to, ask a friend in Atlanta to be able to help me out with the project. I sourced all the legs and stuff, the chair legs and the round legs, from a place in DC. I found that place. I was in a residency in DC, this place called Community Forklift. So, now I'm able to, use my money to go to the region to make the things I want to make now. So I'm excited about this new sculpture I'm coming up with, and being able to reach out to people who have a way better skill set than I do in some things, and then being able to collage all of what I do and what they're doing for me together so that we make an amazing sculpture. So I'm excited about this next piece that's about to come out. Next few months.
I just want to say, I'm just so proud of you. See, African American male that's so gifted and so talented and so creative, and just to know that there's someone out here. You and Daniel both preserving our culture, our history, and I'm just in awe. I'm so excited for you. Yes, it's beautiful.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm glad to see you again, Daniel. When I heard you were coming back, I said, yeah, I gotta be here. If you have not been out there to see his work, Take your time. Also with the monument, take the time to look on the back and see if you can find any relatives that, find the name and see if the name, if you didn't know the name that may be in your family. Because the last time you was here, I kept seeing these young people walk around with shirts on, and I was like, oh, what's the baseball team? And then I looked on the back and it said CT. Perez. That was Culture, and had the troop number, I think it's 37. They're on the monument, and part of the family is here. My family's very out of Florida. And so for me to try to go back and find my actual heritage, I've got to go through the Seminoles and Spaniards and whites and everything that come along. And I don't know if they came through Florida. So we're looking to see just where these people in this whole war, but also in life. And for you to bring that to life, to help with everything. Thank you very much. It makes a lot of us stop and think, what is our heritage? Because I find our heritage. I don't think that, and then we do it now. Thank you.
You have any more questions before we? Right here.
I have a little bit more theoretical question. Do you have an epistemology of aesthetics or an aesthetic epistemology?
Do I have anything on aesthetics?
Aesthetic epistemology.
Can you break down epistemology? I don't know what epistemology means.
Well, then how the way the art sort of impacts upon the individual. For example, Frederick Douglass, I believe, had what we call sort of aesthetic affordance, right? Where you look at his art, and art usually like to sort of orient yourself in the world, to come to understand the world. And one of the nice things about Douglass points out, and I think you probably agree with this, he said that if he didn't have any control of anything in society, he didn't have control of the art.
Okay. So, my first goal is to stop somebody in their tracks with the artwork. If I can stop somebody in their tracks and bring them into the work, that's the number one key thing. You know, and then that brings them to seeing the work and then having a conversation about the work. Like a piece like this, Flying W, you know, that came from a lot of different events that happened, you know, for me to be able to come up with this. You know, at one point in time, I wanted to get a horse carriage, and I wanted to update the horse carriage to today. You know, and me going to the horse carriage bring me back to making cash problem, and like me not wanting to make black bodies anymore because people put me in the box and saying, he just makes slaves work, he just does this, he does that. Like, so then it came to like, okay, let's make a horse. And let me get a horse carriage and let me do all this. And then I ended up meeting a lady who sold me a horse carriage. And she trained horses. And she told me about, you know, how people train horses, and this guy named Jesse Berry, and how he did these horrible things to horses. And then going back to the Willie Lynch letter about how to make a slave, and that letter how he compares people to horses. And the same way you break the horses, the same way you break them down slave, you beat them into existence, you whip them till they have a fear of God now. Made me think, okay, so now I'm gonna use the horse in my artwork. But then I'm gonna cut the legs off the horses because, you know, if you have a horse with a broken leg, 9 times out of 10, you're gonna put that horse down. It's useless. It's gonna take too much money to nurse that horse back to health. So then I put a lot of legs on the horses, and the size is length and the size. So by taking the horse down on the ground, it's still gonna fall over. Because there's no 3 to 4 legs that are the same length. So that's a metaphor for we're given everything we need to destroy ourselves. So if we look at like social media, all these kids trying to trend and do everything that they see on television or whatever, trying to be like these people, we're giving them these different things to try and destroy themselves. So then going back to this lady and saying, hey, I need to buy, do you have a saddle that I can buy? Because I have an idea about making this huge horse and putting a saddle on it. And then she goes back and tells me about the Jesse Berry thing. So then I go back and I look up this guy named Jesse Berry, and then he has this text and he talks about putting, if you can go back to, back one point. That's his text. That's what he said about these things. So, but what I did was I put a blank in there to allow you to fill in the blank, right? So he would put objects on horses to train these horses. He would cover their faces with these bags and then water on these horses or pour water in their ears. So the blank was horse, but I allow you to fill in whatever you want to fill it in. So then if you go to the next image, he would tie the legs of these horses up with ropes. So when the horse got out of control, he would snatch the legs from this horse and make this horse fall face down to create the leg. And then when it landed on the ground, it made this imprint on the ground, the letter W. That's where the title Flying W comes from. But if you look at the hands, there's these hands holding these ropes, but they're in the position of holding a gun or a shotgun. So you think about how people like me are being shot or being aimed at, or us getting the ropes pulled up from under us because, there have been things put in front of us to stop us, to heed us from doing what buying certain things or being what we want to be at. So I like to create an artwork or art piece that's going to stop everybody in their tracks and bring them closer to it and then have them think about what it is that I'm trying to say because something about that piece drew them to it. So, I like to make stuff that's going to physically bring people to it, that's going to capture their attention from the corner, stop them from walking in the middle of the mall, wherever they're walking at, and bring them over to the piece. I don't know if that answered your question.
I saw the exhibition that was here last year and was so moved by it. And in thinking and listening to you talk about what drives you, how do you I want to know what's the intersection between how the art changes you as you're making the art. I mean, the subject matter is so intense. How do you? Is it cathartic or is it, do you have maybe it's too personal, Dad. Is this your therapy? Or is this?
My therapy just means just man, let's see if I can make this. I'm dreaming of it. I think I can make it. Let's see, how can I get this idea that's in my head to real life? And then center in my head and then making it physically. It's wowing myself at the same time because my wife in the house, I do this with my artwork too. We were fixing our house, we do all this stuff to it. And I'm sitting there an hour on end making something, to the deck or painting and all. So I'm just sitting there looking at it just dreaming, I can't believe, I did it, and then she sit there and she sees me doing this, and she's in the living room, in another room, seeing me through the window, just staring for about 10 minutes at this thing, in amazement, yes, I did it. So, to be able to create something that I thought of and then amaze myself is what I'm trying to do. I don't worry about what everybody else is thinking. It's more about me being happy at what I'm doing. If I can't make, I'm gonna feel like I'm a zombie and I'm just sitting here, not being able, doing a day-to-day thing that I don't want to do. Making is giving me life.
Yes, good.
Thank you.
Have any more questions? I want to thank everybody. Oh, we have one more.
I have a question, but I just want to say thank you for starting those conversations. For just making people think. When I came here last year and saw that display, I had all kind of thoughts going through my head. I have one son who's an adult and daughters, and I said, I told all of them, and my nephews,
you need to see this exhibit becomes anywhere close by you, because I want them to see that. And I want them to think about what they see, and I want them to have conversations with their friends. The friends that look like them, and their friends that don't look a whole lot like them, just to have a conversation and get their friends to come and see. Because I think it's important that they see and have the conversation. And I don't care how the conversation comes about, good, bad, or indifferent, have it. Because any of that is a plus. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah. I think the next show I'll have will be in Santa Fe, in a gallery in Santa Fe, New Mexico. So basically everything that was shown there, the horse piece is going to be in Santa Fe. On the 20th of next month, I'll be exhibiting there. So, yes, ma'am.
How old is the horse piece?
I made that last year.
Oh, you did?
I did. Every New Year's, I spend about 24 to 48 hours in the studio creating a piece. So end up starting this piece, but I didn't get it finished like on New Year's Day. I finished it like January 7th of last year. So
the story is just amazing. It breaks my heart, but it inspires me to think.
I also agree with the lady back there. It is inspiration, not only to African Americans, but to everyone to learn the history of the battle that was fought here. Because people who grew up in North Carolina and in Wilmington never heard that story until Boundless came to fruition. So I want to thank you for all that you do, because you did put your heart in it. And I'd like to thank the CAM for allowing the people and the students, and Daniel, when you do your presentations, that they're learning history. So I'm just overwhelmed, and I do appreciate you as well as everybody here at CAM.
No, thanks. It wasn't just me. It was Cam and all the volunteers who sat down and allowed me to cast them. So.
I am just a moving Thomas in the monument. I'm a descendant of the United States Television, and I concur. And it's just emotional just to see it for me. And my son, he's one of the cast. He did a cast on it. So thank you so much for sharing your talents, and thank you, Cam, because this is just amazing. And I believe it's the only one in the country. I know in the state of North Carolina. So thank you so much.
I just have to say the same thing. If I have an opportunity, I can take it, right? But when you mentioned earlier about your work wanting to make people think that to stop, every time that I came and saw the exhibit here, as well as walk around family, everybody, probably 20 times. And with every tour of the work, I was challenged to look at it in a different way and to think about it deeply. And it's arresting. It literally stopped me. Each piece stopped me in my tracks. And the conversations that your work made me have internally helped me want to invite others into that space of having conversations around the work. And some of the things that I heard beyond it being just great artwork, for other people having that challenge of what am I seeing here, what is it? So it's one of those exhibits, all the work that was here that I saw in Boundless. It just ripples, like I still think about it. It still affects me. When I looked at some of the photos that were put through, I had that visceral reaction to the work. And to me, that is what art should be. So thank you for just dreaming
and letting us dream through you too, through your pencils. I appreciate that.
I think one thing Stephen's work does so well is, though you don't use a lot of reflective materials in your work, it's kind of a mirror. You don't have to be black and see yourself, and you walk up to it and allow you to find your own place and to recognize where you are in this country and this story and this part of this narrative. And the same thing that your work did for Jay and Ed, it forces people to ask questions. The amazing thing is, face value is beautiful. People are going to walk up to it before they learn one thing about it. And then once you get a little closer, once you see the bag, once you see the faces, the hands, you can't do anything but stop, ponder for a second. And it's so amazing. And since we've had the 1 year anniversary of Balance, I've had decent minutes all in there. See people sitting down, just taking it in. It's incredible. Your work has a lot of staying power. People want to sit around it. And I know how a lot of people move throughout. You walk and say, well, that looks good, or you say, oh, that doesn't look too good. But your work, it draws you in. And it's really amazing. I'm so happy to have your work here. I know your work's going to travel all around the nation, around the globe. We are so happy Balance isn't going anywhere. So thank you again, and I want to thank everyone else for being here.